Welcome to another FPL video ahead of Game Week 21. We are discussing the team selection today. I'll be discussing how I did in Game Week 20 so far with only one game left, Spurs versus Manchester City, and then I'm going to be talking about my transfer plans for Game Week 21 and beyond. So if you end up enjoying this video, then be sure to drop it a like. Let's try to get this to over 300 and let's keep on pushing towards 20,000 subscribers and more goals in the future. But without further ado, let's get straight into this video. Despite Chelsea's struggles, I was still fairly confident of a Chelsea clean sheet against Crystal Palace, and Kepa repaid my faith with a 10-pointer, making 5 saves, claiming all 3 bonus points, and delivering a double-digit return. He has been a great goalkeeper since I've got him in, with a few returns here and there, the 9-pointer against Bournemouth, and now this 10-pointer. Now, Chelsea aren't a great side, and defensively, they definitely lack a lot. But when they do keep these clean sheets, Kepa has a very good chance of getting these bonus points and also getting a really high score. And that's why I like him. He's quite cheap as well. So for the time being, he's not a priority transfer. He could still be sold in the weeks to come, but Cucurella's the one that I definitely need to get rid of, especially with him losing his spot. And Chilwell's not even back yet, so Kepa's a fine option. He's the only Chelsea player I would consider right now, and I'm happy with this return. Manchester United have been flying recently, but there must be a bitter taste in the Man United fans right now after the end of the Crystal Palace game. Not only was Casemiro suspended for the weekend against Arsenal, but also they conceded a late goal to Elise. Fantastic free kick, and Luke Shaw with only 4 points, two-pointers against Man City and Crystal Palace, but I still think he's a good defender option in the weeks to come. And Man United could have a double in Game Week 22. If there is an announcement, then you'll find it out on this channel, and we will also talk about it in the deadline streams as well and all of that good stuff. But Luke Shaw with a 4-pointer, I mean, I expected more from him. I thought he'd keep a clean sheet against Crystal Palace and maybe get a 1 or 2 points against City. In the end, he didn't keep any clean sheet, no bonus points for him at all. And it was other Man United assets like Bruno Fernandes who stole the show in Game Week 20. But moving on to the rest of the defence, and I did go for Botman. I was very, very fortunate with this because not only did I get rid of Mitrovic and take a -4 hit to get rid of him, but I also had double Newcastle defence here. Botman with a 6-pointer. He was on course for a bonus point at one stage. And Kieran Trippier, he went from 0 bonus points, nowhere near, and he also didn't get a yellow card for the penalty he conceded, and he ended up getting all 3 bonus points. And to be fair, the penalty was quite fortunate for Fulham, so maybe you could say it was justice that it wasn't scored, but you could argue Fulham should have had a penalty earlier in the game as well. And for Mitrovic to hit it twice, basically in the same penalty shot, I mean, it's just really fortunate to be fair, and he should be off penalties in the long term. But I really like Newcastle defenders. My only doubt about them is Game Week 25, with a very likely blank to happen. Some people even triple captain this player this week. Marcus Rashford delivered a huge return against Man City in the dying embers of that game, but failed to produce, and he had a pretty poor game against Crystal Palace, but still a great option in the weeks to come. Like I mentioned with Shaw, there could be a double in 22, either against Leeds or Brentford at home. That would mean 2 home fixtures with Crystal Palace at home already scheduled, and I think triple captaining Rashford in that week could prove very fruitful. So I still like him as an option despite his blank and poor and underwhelming performance yesterday, and I could still see him doing well against Arsenal. Next up is Martinelli, who has been a bit frustrating recently. He's still gotten some good goals and assists since the World Cup, but those mainly came against Brighton and West Ham, and since then blanks against Newcastle and Tottenham, and he also was pretty underwhelming against Oxford in the FA Cup. Still a good option. I would keep him in most cases, but Odegaard is definitely the midfielder of choice in terms of the Arsenal ranks right now. And I still prefer Bukayo Saka. Just bear in mind, if you're looking to bring in Saka right now, if he gets a yellow against Man United, he will be suspended for the Everton game in 22. And then next up is De Bruyne, who picked up an assist, and he actually missed training the other day due to personal reasons, but Pep Guardiola confirmed he is back. He's in contention to start against Spurs, so I have no concerns about him. And he was actually pretty poor against Man United overall, but he still picked up that assist, that moment of quality, and he has been great since the World Cup. And it's kind of ironic because when he was playing really well, he wasn't getting any FPL points, and when he played pretty poorly against Man United, he ended up getting an assist. And I expect many things to come in the next few weeks. After Game Week 23 and Man City's double there against Villa and Arsenal, that's when I would consider getting rid of De Bruyne and just going for really cheap midfielders that offer a lot of value potentially. But then again, we have so much value in the game in all positions that it might not be completely necessary. So it's just a matter of who do you think scores more points. And right now, I think Odegaard is the midfielder of choice. And even if Odegaard costs half the money and you have a lot of money in the bank, so be it. It's just about who you think scores more points, and I think Odegaard in the long term is looking like a really good FPL asset, despite the underlying numbers not being anywhere near as good as Kevin De Bruyne's. The last midfielder is Almiron, who has blanked 3 times in a row, but with those fixtures coming up, I discussed him in the transfer tips video, so be sure to check that out. I think he's a worthwhile hold up until Game Week 24 at the least, and potentially I will get rid of him around Game Week 22 for Odegaard, but the other possibilities are getting rid of Martinelli instead, or someone else like Andreas Pereira. So I would try to give Almiron at least one other week, and ideally you'd give him until the Bournemouth game in Game Week 23. After that, if he doesn't do well in the next 3 games, then I think he's an easy sell. But for the time being, with those fixtures and the way Newcastle are playing, I still think Almiron is well worth an inclusion in your squad. Despite Spurs struggling at home recently, one of the biggest surprises for me this week was Harry Kane not scoring in the North London derby and Spurs not scoring a single goal. They had opportunities, they probably deserved a goal, but in the end Ramsdale denied the likes of Kane, Sessegnon and Heung-min Son with some fantastic saves. And Kane still has the City game, and I really like him beyond Game Week 20, so I have no issues with him whatsoever, despite him obviously costing quite a lot of money, and I'm not going to captain him maybe that often, but I think there is a debate to sometimes go against the Haaland permanent captaincy, and if there's any kind of premium that I would trust at the moment, it would be Harry Kane, who for me is the second best option in the game, never mind premium. Obviously, you could also include Trippier in the conversation. Those are the 3 best FPL assets so far, and that has been reflected with the points they have scored. Erling Haaland, though, a very underwhelming performance against Manchester United. He got into some good positions, but wasn't found by his teammates. He faces Tottenham next. I would expect him to do well, maybe 1 or 2 goals. You never know with Erling Haaland. He does really well, especially in home matches, and I would back him to do the business. And I also like him beyond Game Week 20. I'm never going to consider selling him, to be honest, but I am going to consider going away from him in terms of the captaincy. So I'm going to watch the Spurs game and see how he does against them. And if I'm really impressed, I'll probably captain him again in Game Week 21. We'll discuss this very soon. But if not, if I have maybe any doubts about his performance, then I might reconsider and put the armband on someone else. I'll talk about this later on as well, so don't you worry. The last option was one of my transfers in for a -4 hit. Ivan Toney in for Mitrovic for a -4. One of the luckiest transfers I've made all season. It paid off. Toney got a very lucky penalty, let's be honest. You could argue he was the one fouling the defender in the first place. Mitrovic missed a penalty, technically, by hitting it twice. So a lot kind of went right in my favour. But I do feel for those Mitrovic owners, and he has been a pain when I've owned him this season as well. But now, let's get into the Game Week 21 team selection portion of this video and talking about my transfer plans. Okay, maybe I got a bit ahead of myself. Let's talk about the ranks first, because people always are interested to see, and also who I captain. Erling Haaland was the captain here in Game Week 20, no surprises, and I think he could do something against Tottenham, like I said earlier, but I wasn't that confident in Erling Haaland, despite how good of an option he is and the expected minutes obviously being very high in Game Week 20. But those fixtures against Man United and Tottenham really put me off, and I wasn't that surprised by him blanking against United. So I'm actually quite happy I didn't put the triple captaincy armband on him yet. But then again, a hat-trick against Tottenham could completely change my sentiments there. And you can also see I've got 66 points so far, with a -4 hit taken into account. That's 62, 1,190 points overall. And I've gone up yet again in rank to 219,000 at the time of this recording. That could change, of course. I've still got 3 players left, all attacking: Kevin De Bruyne, Harry Kane, and Erling Haaland. All 3 of them are premiums as well, so I would expect another rank rise, maybe into the top 200k. I'd be very happy with that. In terms of when I'm looking to use the triple captaincy, maybe Game Week 22, if Man United get a double game week on a Rashford, for example, or later in the season on an Arsenal asset like Odegaard, or better still, Haaland when he has a really good double. But that all depends on the FA Cup and the Carabao Cup. We've covered this in recent videos as well, and how the likes of Brighton and West Ham do in that competition as well. But now let's talk about the Game Week 21 team selection for real. Like many of you, I have a serious goalkeeper dilemma this week, and I have to choose between Kepa and Ward. I don't think either goalkeeper keeps a clean sheet, and the last time Leicester played Brighton, they conceded 5 goals, and that's in the back of my mind as well. And Kepa's facing Liverpool, who have been off form, and the way I see it, I think Brighton are a better team than Liverpool right now, and I think both teams could score a bucket-load of goals, especially Liverpool at Anfield, but at the same time, I'm still not too sure. I think I'm just going to go for Kepa right now, due to his form. He's been producing some good saves. I know there's also the odd mistake, like the ones against Man City, especially in the Premier League, but I still think he's been showing some FPL form. Leicester have lost every single game since the restart, and I would say Chelsea are in a better position right now, and Leicester could be in a relegation fight. as they were looking poised to be at the beginning of this season. And it's kind of weird because Ward also had that really good period between game week 8 and maybe 16, where he was the best goalkeeper in the game, but he's gone back to what he was in the first 7 game weeks of the season. Leicester look completely dysfunctional, and there are so many problems there, and they're facing Brighton, who I think could really put them to the sword. So I'm going for Kepa right now, but it's 50-50, and I think I originally went for Ward early in the week, so that's what I mean. I could change my mind about this, and I'm still very unsure. Let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below. Who are you going to go for? But right now, I'm going for the Spaniard. There's only one change in my team selection this week compared to Game Week 20, and that's Ben White coming in for Luke Shaw. And it's a really difficult decision for me. Luke Shaw played as a left-back once again against Crystal Palace. That means he's going to have more attacking threat. But at the same time, he was a bonus points machine when playing as a centre-back. A lot depends on United keeping a clean sheet. The way I look at it is, who's more likely to keep that clean sheet, Arsenal or United? I would say Arsenal because they're at home and they're also the more informed team, you could say. I mean, that's really up for debate. United were on an absolute flyer before the Palace game, and you can't really think too much of it. They're two of the best teams in the country for a reason, and you've also got the likes of Man City and Newcastle, all very similar level. And in terms of defence, I do still back Arsenal more than United over the course of the season. But since the restart, Man United have been very impressive from a defensive point of view, and they were very unlucky to drop points against Crystal Palace yesterday. But I think I might go for Ben White and finally start him, because in recent weeks, I just keep on benching him and he keeps on producing returns. And not just that, not only the clean sheets, but also some bonus points on top of it. Now, the other two defenders are very simple for me. I'm going for Botman away to Crystal Palace. I think Newcastle have a very good chance of a clean sheet. And despite that incredible free kick by Elise, you know, they didn't really create too much, Crystal Palace, against Man United, in my opinion. At least big chances. And I think Newcastle could keep that clean sheet. And I'm very happy to go for a defensive double up. Of course, the other one you're going to know, I'm going to start him, is Kieran Trippier. And it doesn't matter what the fixture is, he's always going to be in the starting 11. It's just a matter of who the other defenders are going to be. Despite my preference being Martin Odegaard, I will have to do a Martinelli for the time being, and he can do really well in these big games at home. He did it against Liverpool early in the season, scoring inside a minute. And on the counter-attack, I think he could also cause some problems for Man United. Although the way I would expect the game to go is Arsenal having most of the possession and Man United sitting deep and then looking to counter as they did at Old Trafford. Now, Martinelli scored a really good goal in the reverse fixture, but it was wrongfully disallowed. And I think he could do something here. I have a good feeling about Martinelli in Game Week 21, but it's going to be a tough game for both teams. Very evenly matched, and I will have a bit of a dilemma and a bit of a conflict because I've also got Marcus Rashford, and if he scores, then obviously Ben White will most likely not get any returns in the game. But I'm happy to go for this, and I would back Arsenal a little bit more in this game, especially with no Casemiro. But honestly, United have a good chance of getting a draw or even a win. And it's going to be a really close game to call. And it could go either way. That's the way I see it. Rashford's still a great FPL option. Next up is Kevin De Bruyne at home to Wolves. I'm very happy to have him. But as I discussed in my best free hit team video, I would argue Salah is a slightly better option in Game Week 21. But honestly, it's so difficult to call. And a lot could happen this week. And many of these games are 50-50. Chelsea versus Liverpool, Arsenal versus United. You could argue all of them are neck and neck. And you just don't know how it's going to go. The last midfielder I have is Almiron against Crystal Palace. I have a good feeling about him in this fixture, despite his recent blanks. And if he looks really poor against Palace, I might just be tempted to do Almiron to Odegaard in Game Week 22 in preparation for Everton away. But that's something to think about after the Game Week 21 matches are finished. For the time being, my kind of thinking is to keep Almiron for as long as possible, maybe up until Game Week 24. The one area of the pitch that I'm going to have no doubts about is the front three. Harry Kane's going to start. He's also a genuine captaincy option, and it's probably going to be between him and Erling Haaland, as it will tend to be in most weeks. I've got Kevin De Bruyne. I've got some other good captaincy options as well, but I think most likely the captaincy and vice-captaincy will fall on these two players. Let me know if you have any doubts, or maybe you're going against Haaland this week, and if so, which player are you going to put the armband on? The last striker that I have is Ivan Toney, who I genuinely believe could be a good captaincy option this week. The way I would rank it in terms of the players I have is Haaland first potentially, Harry Kane second, and Ivan Toney third, then maybe De Bruyne fourth. But honestly, I think the front three offer the best captaincy options in Game Week 21, at least amongst my ranks, because there are still other options that could always deliver and that maybe we don't expect to at this point in time. But now let's go into the captaincy and also how my bench is ordered before wrapping up this video. There may still be changes, such as the goalkeeper. Ward could come in for Kepa Arrizabalaga, and I've also got Luke Shaw, who I'm a bit uncomfortable benching, to be honest, but at the same time, I think Arsenal will score against Man United, and the only way Luke Shaw will get points, at least in my view, is from an assist, which is possible, of course, but still quite unlikely. Then you've got Andres Pereira and Cucurella completing the bench. When you look at my squad, the weak link is Cucurella, and I will be getting rid of him in the weeks to come. I might even downgrade him to a Bueno, and I could also look to move him on to Stones or another Man City defender in preparation for Man City's double in Game Week 23. So that's something I've got in the back of my mind, but the kind of key transfer I want to make in the weeks to come is Martin Odegaard and bring in an Arsenal player ahead of their double in Game Week 23, and that could be for either Almiron, Martinelli, or Andres Pereira. Beyond Game Week 23, I'm also open to the idea of selling Kevin De Bruyne, as I've discussed earlier. But apart from that, I'm very happy with my team. The rest of the transfers will be focused on building for Game Week 25, which could be a blank for the likes of Newcastle and Manchester United, amongst others. And Ivan Toney's another one that could be blanking. So that's where the other free transfers could come into play. Might even take a hit or something. But I'll be honest, when I'm looking at Game Week 25 and that blank, obviously we have to find out what happens in the cups and stuff, and also how things develop over the next few weeks. But really, I'm not that bothered about getting an 11 out in Game Week 25. As long as I have 8 or 9 of the key players, I'm very happy to just roll with that and then maybe look to bring back some of these players like Ivan Toney beyond Game Week 25. But honestly, Game Week 25 is not really something I look at and think, I need to get a full 11 out. It's about quality over quantity for me. But of course, I'm going to have it in the back of my mind, and I will also be looking to have more information, then making more transfers around Game Week 22 onwards. I've got one free transfer this week. I'm going to be rolling and have more information next week once we have more confirmation of maybe double Game Week 22 and also blank Game Week 25. And there I can make some more informed decisions and make the best transfers possible. And in terms of the captaincy, which is going to be the last kind of thing to resolve here, I'm going for Haaland at the moment. But like I said earlier, if he doesn't perform that well against Spurs or have any doubts about how City are playing, then I might reconsider and then put the captaincy armband on Ivan Toney or Harry Kane, who's currently my vice-captain. So one of those front three, I think, will be my captain. It's just a matter of how Man City do against Spurs and vice versa. But thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed this video or found it useful, then smash the like button and subscribe for new. Let's get this video to over 300 likes. Let's also push on towards 20,000 subscribers. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram, DylanRCM, and you can also become a patron or a channel member, patreon.com/DylanRCM, and check the links for the Discord server and the FPL League. There's a lot of stuff headed your way. I wish you all the best of luck for Game Week 21 and the rest of the season, and I'll see you next time.